Hello, John Gillette, Arizona State Representative, here to talk to you today about Arizona schools, budget, finance, ESA, the whole ball of wax. Okay, there's not enough time in this show, not enough time in the day to cover this topic with everything that needs to be covered. But here's the problem. In overarching, very quick snippets, the funding formula, the actual funding formula used in the budget to provide funding from the tax dollar to each child going to school, we're calling it butts and seats. So every butt in a seat is given an amount of money. The formula we use to figure that has not really been changed since 1966. So we're talking a 58-year-old funding formula. There's been some changes since 1966. It's time to update how we do business in funding the student. But with doing that, the school system hasn't changed how they're operating for about 40 years. If you think back to the late Carter, early Reagan administration, where the teachers' unions were really getting more involved in politics than ever before, they came to the federal government and they asked for more money. They said, we're educators. We know how to train kids. We know how to teach kids. We know how to run our schools. The problem is the money. So if we have adequate funds, we can teach these kids and deliver a product that's good for you. And that was good through maybe the mid 80s, that the money was actually going to the right places and students were getting an education. But since then, every year the teachers union, the school districts, all the entities that live in the realm of institution, we're talking lobbies, unions, things that you wouldn't even imagine, they want more money. And that's what's going on. Every year they come back and ask for more money. Well, we see these problems, so we're going to fix it with this. It requires more money. Oh, we have a problem with this type of student, this type of learner, this type of whatever. They come up with a reason for more money. Now, if we were getting a better product, I'm like, okay, education is the future. I would almost say, okay, it costs more to do business in today's world. We get it. But the product that we're getting from the 1980s was here. We have been giving money, and the product we're getting is here. Now, I taught at a military sniper school, and this is several years back. This was late 90s, early 2000s, before we went to Ukraine the first time. We weren't failing soldiers on their ability to shoot. We weren't failing them on fieldcraft. What we were failing them on was math. We would have to send them to an basically eighth grade level remedial math course. And you only get 2 opportunities to pass this. And if you can't get a soldier to understand 8th grade math, he's not going to be able to shoot the rifle and do the job. You're going to have to, reclass that individual. So I didn't understand the problem then. I as a soldier, I'm focused on my job, doing, working in the field, doing my anti-terrorism stuff. I didn't really think about education until the Sergeant Major's Academy. And I looked at how the Army runs schools, not only the DoD school program, but the military school program. And I started looking at how public schools and charter schools run their programs. We definitely have an operational flow and design problem with the public schools. The administrative function has grown to the point where it amasses everything, and it's like a huge cancer that sucks up money. That's all it does. You hear about teachers complaining about their pay. Well, they have a right. When you have a teacher that has all the credentials you need and has that master's degree, is trying to teach kids in school, and you look at their salary and realize they could be an assistant manager at Golden Corral and make more money than they are as a teacher, we have a problem in our system. Now, with our system and the design and flow problem with Arizona schools, and this is probably schools across the country, we're taking the best teachers and moving them up to administrative function because they need more money to stay in the game. So we're taking the teachers that are the most qualified out of the classroom. This is what they're trained to do. They're trained to teach kids. They're not trained to do finance, transportation, HR. These are things that are out of their realm. And just to get them a few more dollars in their monthly paycheck, we're having them do these functions. And again, taking them away from the students. So a lot of schools realize, hey, that's not a good idea. We need to get the teachers a raise and keep them in the classroom. They see this problem, but the money never seems to go to the teacher. So teachers still aspire for higher positions, principal, vice principal, on up to superintendent. So the best of the best that stay in the game end up in the administrative function, which you could say that's climbing the ladder, but when they move up, these teachers, very good at what they do, they're not equipped to run transportation. I had a question in our summer program where we interviewed uh, superintendents from all around the state looking for best practices. I had a question from one of the folks in the room. He asked me, he said, Representative, do you know what it takes to move a bus stop just from one street to the other? And I said, well, no, I don't, sir. It's probably a complicated matter. You got ADOT rules, you got federal rules, you got federal busing rules. But you know what? We send kids to ASU for a degree in transportation engineering. So why don't we hire that transportation engineer from ASU and put him in the county superintendent's office and say, hey, we know you're trained to run mass transit. You can obviously run school transit. Let him do that job. Give him a good salary, but also take the money that you're paying the 3 teachers, the assistant principal, and Bob from Joe's Auto that's helping you run your transportation program. Give that to a professional and give the teachers a little bit more money. Same thing goes with HR. You have teachers making administrative decisions, going to a school board that is not trained properly in HR disciplines, and they're making decisions that really a lot of times are unlawful. And if the teacher gets wind of it, of course they're going to sue, of course they're going to win and deserve to win. And it's costing the schools millions of dollars. Now, something else we saw over the summer when we asked several superintendents to come in, the superintendents don't want to come in and talk. What they want to send to us is their legal representative. Since when does a school have to have an attorney on retainer to ask legislative questions? This is well out of control. Then you add in the broken curriculum system, and you're introducing the woke and the DI. And this is not even a political issue, but when it gets political and you're introducing woke, DEI, Common Core math, all these topics, these are hot topics. So if I'm a vendor making these hot topics, this is the cool stuff right now. So I'm going to name my price. Hey, I've got the best DEI program out there. It's all garbage anyway, but you know what? I'm going to sell it as the best in the West, and this school is going to buy it so they stay in compliance with the DEI stuff. This is going to cost millions of dollars for this curriculum. That's garbage. So we get away from the state mandates of what the minimum curriculum standards are. If the state's going to mandate it, I think the state should supply it. We should buy a curriculum package from any of the big good schools. A big shout out to Hillsdale working on that project. But take a Hillsdale curriculum, a traditional curriculum of all the disciplines, math, science, reading, art, literature, all these things that we want to see our child receive in education to form a good decision later in life. But we're not getting that. We're getting these woke social programs, and I'll mention a couple. McGraw-Hill, Curriculum Associates, some of those curriculum packages exceed $1 million. So we're mandating what is required. If the state mandates it, we should write it and give it to the schools and let the schools save that money and give it to teachers. Now you'll have some of the woke teachers will be against it. Well, we're not inclusive. But the main thing that I found over the summer, we took very copious notes. The schools that mentioned inclusiveness, the schools that mentioned DEI and all their inclusive programs, they were the ones with the lower scores. The schools that talked about competence as their watchword, standards, teacher standards, administrative standards, holding people responsible for their job, those are the schools with the better test scores. Now, I've introduced a couple of bills this year. One, I'm doing a school reform pilot project that I hope to get started in Mojave and La Paz County. We were going to add Yavapai County, and I met with their school superintendent over there, and I'll give him a big shout out. Tim Clark, one of the most well-respected superintendents in this state. at the county level, 50 years of educational experience. The guy is phenomenal. And the reason I looked at his, because I went over the school budgets, this guy in the course of about 7 years saved $100 million. And I'm like, wow, how is Yavapai County just kicking everyone's tail in this? So I look at my program and I look to see the commonalities, and I finally meet with this guy, phenomenal guy. He's doing probably 60% of what this bill proposes already, 60 to 70%. Now, it's taken him several years to implement because he had to fight the system on it. No, he couldn't get buy-in. Well, this law, that law. So if we start a pilot program allowing this to happen, and what he'll call shared services, that's his term, and I can't steal his term because he made it up and he's using it and he's doing the job. But if we use a central command type of function where we bring transportation, HR, facilities, and finance under the auspices of the elected county superintendent, they can manage that from a central location. So if that's managed, imagine school district 1. Hey, superintendent, I'm down 2 teachers. I need a teacher. You don't have the whole administrative apparatus at that district. Like every district duplicates this function. So you have 10 schools in a school district. You have 10 HR professionals, 10 finance professionals. You have all these folks that we're paying money. Let's take the best of the best, move them to the superintendent's office, have them administer that. With that requirement, we don't want schools reporting their finances back to the state. We don't want them to be in charge of their finance. We want them to write a budget. We want them to spend responsible, but we want the superintendent to be 100% accountable for those funds. That superintendent reports back to JLBC. They report back to the auditor. They account for every single dime of that money. And that's how government works. So schools, when it's convenient for them, they're a political subdivision of government. You can't touch us here because we're quasi-government. But when it's not convenient, well, no, we're going to do it like this because we have best practices. It doesn't work both ways, folks. Either a school is a political subdivision of government or it's a private entity. The ESAs are a private entity. They are surviving and thriving because they are giving the parent what they want in educational needs for their kid. If the public school can't do it, now there's competition. So either we privatize all of it. We can still use tax money and make it a private venture, but let the market decide who has the better product. Let the parent choose that better product. That's all ESA is doing. If we applied a little bit of that to public schools and we tightly watch that funding, we reduce their administrative function, put it under a central location, there's tons of money out there. More than half of Arizona's budget, half of our state budget, a little more than half goes to public schools and colleges. We're taking the other half into roads, bridges, law enforcement, firefighting. So all the functions and duty and responsibility of government is cut in half because of schools. Teachers need a raise. Administrators don't need a raise. We need to cut administrative staff, give the teachers the raise that they need to stay in the field, stay in the classroom. I work with somebody that's looking at my program, former member of the Board of Education, former school teacher, and I say former on both because those jobs don't pay the bills. Her, and I'm not going to set her out here, but her weekly or her biweekly check was $985 take home. Her rent is $800. So do the math. You can't survive on that. And if you are surviving on that, you're just doing that. You're surviving. You're not progressing and using our economy to the best of your ability. So what she does now, she's getting paid, but phenomenal teacher taken away from the school board, taken away from the kids in the classroom for financial reasons. That's where we have to change how we're doing business. 42 years, school districts have not changed how they're doing business. It's time. Funding formula, 58 years old. It's time for a change. So hopefully we can push this thing through. We do a 5-year pilot project, find out the ins and outs, and maybe we change schools forever in the state of Arizona. So with that, I'll leave you to that thought. How do we change a 42-year-old system? If you got a better way, let me know. Thanks. Have a good day.